did you guys ever come to a point where you guys were going to stop and quit? Happy Star Wars Day. My guests today are the authors from the groundbreaking new collector's book, Star Wars Toy Guide Volume 1, Kenner Action Figures, 1977 to 1985. It's taken the Star Wars collecting universe by storm. We are going to talk about the book, why and how they made it, and what's next on the horizon. So without further ado, here is Gregory Armstrong and Gianni Vecchiarini. Oh, hi guys. I was just reading my book. Have you guys heard of it? It's the new book from ReadFive Designs. All right, that was completely cheesy. That was my idea, though. It was my idea.
Like it.
Happy Star Wars Day, guys. I am with Gregory Armstrong and Gianni Vecchiarini. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Really well. You know what I mean? May the fourth be with you.
May the fourth be with you. Great to talk to you guys. We've been in communication for a while, but this is really the first time that we're talking. Is that right?
Yeah, face to face through a screen. Yeah, that's right. And, it's like that with a lot of collectors online. You know, before I was doing the book, I wasn't even on social media, so all this is sort of fairly new to me. Greg's quite a person in all that sort of side of things, which is one of the reasons why I got him on board in the first place. So. But yeah, no, it's great to see you face to face. Yeah.
Well, it's great to be here. It's great to be here talking to you guys. I'm a big fan of your work. I'm going to get right into it. The question that I wanted to know, and a lot of these questions are questions that are coming from a lot of my viewers, a lot of my Patreon and YouTube supporters. I told them that I was going to be talking to you, and the questions started flooding in. So all of these questions are from them. The first question that is from me is, I really want to know the moment in history, the moment in time. It's like the moment that Michael J. Fox goes back in that DeLorean. What was the moment in time that you guys decided we are going to do this book? And what was that spark that just did it?
Gianni's going to have a more exciting answer than me. My answer to that question is when Gianni messaged me, pitching me the idea and asking if I wanted to help out. And I wish I still had that message, because that would be pretty cool to show now, wouldn't it, to throw up on the screen. But yeah, Gianni messaged me, pitching me this idea and asking if I wanted to get involved. And I was working in digital marketing at the time, didn't really have much spare time. But I was like, absolutely, I'm doing this. Yeah, 100%. I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm going to do it.
And then you found out and you're like, are you crazy?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, I actually, honestly, it sounds so cheesy, but it honestly felt like everything had kind of led me to that point. And I was like, this is it. This is that thing I'm waiting for. This is that thing I knew was coming, but didn't know what that thing would be. This is it. Gianni just messaged me and here it is out of the blue. Let's do it.
We're going to get into it later, but you said yes without knowing what it was. The question I'm going to ask later on is the process, because just looking at this book and how much detail and information is in it, I really want to know that. I know it may sound nerdy, but project management must have been a nightmare on this thing. Just the amount of detail that's in here. But for those people who are meeting you for the first time, who are really getting to know the book for the first time, can you take us through just some key features of what this book really is?
Go on, John.
Ultimately, it's a catalogue of what was available 1977 to 1985. So all the figures, what was released, what they look like, any variations and things. But there are some quite unique elements to the book as well, which sound certain things that haven't been done before in Star Wars books, such as the full-size images of card backs and the figures themselves. Plus, we've also got the flow charts, which when we were studying all the card backs and just looking through them, and part of the issue is that card backs get discovered that weren't necessarily, it wasn't known before, either with a different sticker combination or something like that attached to it, particularly the backs of the cards. And they would then get the next letter in line in terms of, card back, 20 back J or whatever. So chronologically, that wasn't necessarily correct. So we looked at all the card backs, broke them all down, and you break them down into master card backs, which are just purely printed card backs, no sticker embellishments or anything like that on them. And then you work out all the sticking by the offers. You've got dates on the offers, so you can tell chronologically when certain dates were out or when certain stickers were applied. So you're able to then see an expanse of what was available and when it was available. So you know when certain things slot into place. And so we do that with the flow charts, which is quite prominent on, say, the 20 backs with the FET rocket firing FET offer, because that went through a lot of changes with health and safety and things like that. So that's a good example to see how the flow charts actually work and how it shows you the expanse of that breakdown.
Right. So this, I'm going to do an analogy right now. So, Greg, you said that when you decided to come on board, you knew what the end result was going to be, what the end goal was probably in your mind's eye. There's one thing about having a book in your mind's eye. When I'm holding this, when I'm looking at it, all the detail, everything that's in here, all the editing, all the photos, all the information, I know that was your end result, but it's like, to me, it's like when Peter Jackson gets that first script of Lord of the Rings and says, "Oh, this is awesome," and then there's that panic moment of, how am I going to do this now? What was the project management like? What was the actual in the trenches moments like, from getting what you guys wanted to what is printed here? Like,
you would love it as well, because I know you love a spreadsheet. There were lots of spreadsheets. There were lots of spreadsheets. You would have loved it. But it's almost not that way, because what you've got isn't what the end project was originally going to be. It was a very different book. It was landscape. It was thinner. It was smaller. It still had like the card backs and stuff in it, but it obviously didn't have a lot of the more detailed chapters. There weren't variants. There weren't droids. There weren't Ewoks. It was a lot more compact. And that's how we launched the Kickstarter with that. And then obviously all the doors opened after the Kickstarter, and more people got in touch and more collections were offered to us. The book then became the book you have now. So it really didn't become, when we launched Kickstarter, we thought we were nearly done. This is going to be easy. Book's nearly done. And then all this amazing information and content came our way, and it was like, this book's going to become an absolute beast now, and we're going along for the ride. Yeah, it was a very deep, detailed process, and try and put it in perspective because obviously it was during COVID, so lockdown, so we couldn't be in the same room. So I was receiving the poster box of Biker Scouts, and I'm like, right, these are variants apparently. Like, line them all out, and there's no one there. So I'm on Zoom with Johnny, like, so this one's got a longer snout, so that's that one. This one's chest plate is a bit longer. There goes my TST. This one's chest plate is different, so that's that one. And all that had to then be put into spreadsheets as well. So it was just spreadsheet of figure and variation and weapons, and it was very, very geekly satisfying.
And that's the next time you guys do a book like this, let me know. I'll put the cameras, I'll do the behind the scenes, just because that would be an awesome documentary that I would want to see. Taking a step back, you mentioned you guys had a version 1, which was the Kickstarter, and then you said that you had, once you got more access to collections, that's a question I wanted to ask here, and this is from one of my viewers. They ask, I know you had a lot of collaborators in making of this book. Who were some of the major collaborators that you guys worked with to put this book together?
Well, initially I had a couple of friends who've got quite a vast collection of stuff, and they're quite private collectors because, that's their prerogative. They want to keep what they've got to themselves. They don't necessarily want to share it and stuff. But doing the Kickstarter, we knew that there would be, there was, you take a bit of a gamble, because we know that we didn't have everything for the book, even with the initial content that we were looking at. So we thought, showing off what we've got, what we're doing, and starting a project, hopefully it gets people on board and say, I can help you out here. I've got this or I've got that, which is more beneficial for us, because then we can acknowledge those people also in the book. So it gives it a bit more gravitas. It gives pieces provenance and things like that. So going through the process of the Kickstarter, we knew that would then open potential doors of other collectors. We didn't quite realise how much the book was going to grow.
How many doors would open, yeah.
Yeah, but the trouble is, when you learn something new, there's a need to get it in the book. So that's why it sort of evolved like that. But going back to the beginning even, it was always going to be evolutionary, because we're being introduced to new people, we're introducing ourselves and what we can do. So it just opens doors and gets other people involved. So you're going to have access to more information.
That's amazing. There's a reason why I asked that, because I'm doing a grading run right now. And the reason why is, when you're doing a grading run, you have to get these things perfect because you want to get the highest grade as possible. I'm actually using your book to reference what the figures are supposed to look like, because all the ones that you have cataloged in this book, they're pristine. And to get those specimens like that, that's why I was asking how many people sent in, figure after figure, and, that borrowed from people's collections. That's great, because the level of detail that I've seen in these figures is pretty much second to none. Like, the figures you showcase are pristine. We're going to get into the photography and the media gathering later on. But the other aspect that I noticed was your design process. A lot of books that I've seen out there, and I don't want to compare your book to other books. I think a lot of books out there have a reason for something, right? You piece these together and you create a library. The aspect I like about your book is the design. I want to ask you guys the thought process of design, because here's what I noticed. Everything in here is a design element that doesn't need to, you guys didn't do elements that don't need to be in there, such as like star fields or whatever. It's a very clean design. So let's talk about that and your thought process behind design.
That was,
incredible
layout, incredible design, easy to read, and I like it's uniformed across, our other products. The mini guide, it's all uniform. We can look at a book and be like, without seeing the cover, oh, that's a ReadFive layout. But yeah, Johnny can go into more detail about what made him go down that route. But yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, even when I can go as far back as when I was at college, and my teacher sort of teaching you less is more. It's that sort of cliche, if you like. And I think when you've got subject matter which are beautiful in themselves, you don't need to elaborate on them any more than is necessary. So any sort of design element that you add to it becomes a something that is practical to the book. So where we use color elements and things like that in order to color code things and stuff like that, it's all practical reference points that you can use when looking through the book. But in terms of the actual subject matter, they don't need any more embellishments on them.
That's what I noticed first off, is that everything is just so clean. Your eye just goes straight to the figures and what you're supposed to look at, which is the figures and the information. I remember I have the coin collections also, and there's details that you guys have in your coins that I never knew was there because the photographs are so clean. And I think that's the next question that somebody is asking is the archival and media gathering process. What was that like, especially in the photography and the editorial of the photography? They also asked, like, did you guys have a lot of photos that weren't perfect? Did you guys have to retake those over again? And did you guys have to kind of refine your process to say, okay, this is the way that we want to take photographs and put these in the book?
100%. So again, it was lockdown. So I was doing all the photography in my kitchen, which is usually on my kitchen table in my kitchen.
See, the next time you guys do this, please have it behind the scenes, because that's what I want to see. You in your kitchen, while your wife or partner is cooking. And no, honey, I'm just taking pictures of action figures. I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's right. Sneaky Easter egg on the large action figures. You can almost see my kitchen in the reflection of R2's dome. Like, so a little Easter egg there of my kitchen. But I loved doing the photography, and it was a long process because I had Johnny's entire loose collection at my house, which at first I was very worried about because, that's Johnny's pride and joy, and it's in my house. I've got a 5-year-old. We're all locked in. We're at the time a 2-year-old. We're in a house we can't leave, and I've got these things here, and I'm having to put them in the kitchen. But it was really exciting. I spent a whole day doing it, and then it was actually my full-time job. I was just doing that every day in the kitchen, and that would go on for a couple of months. I'm doing it figure, left, right, back, front, all angles, and then cloak on, cloak off, every accessory taken off, every accessory separately, then back on, and then it would all go to Johnny. Johnny would work his magic, and then there would be reshoots. Each one's need a bit more detail. This one needs that, and I'd come back, do it all again, and then time would pass, and then we started working on variations. So then I started all over again, but with not just figures, but I was getting like a box of weapons and being like, right, okay, polar weapons, how am I going to shoot these? And it was more experimenting with how to do that, because I went from doing it overhead to literally tacking it on the wall and doing.
Blue tack was your friend.
Blue tack was my white,
Wow.
more precise. Scott was my friend on a white background, because some figures don't stand. We all know this. You're trying to get them to stand up, and there's no, they're just boom, because you're trying not to get them constantly on stands when you need Chewbacca to wear the backpack with 3PO on it, and he keeps falling forward. So it sounds like a small thing I'm not complaining about. I like those little challenges. We're trying to be respectful of the figure, get the shot you need, and make it look good without overdoing, sometimes I attack on its shoulder against the back wall, holding it up from the side. So it was an old, big, long process, but I actually loved doing all that and problem solving it and seeing how to make it look the best. And when we came to doing the reshoots and having to do ones again, I'd learned so much by that point. I almost started redoing ones earlier just to make them all look. That's good, because I wanted everything to look pristine all the way through. And if something was a bit blurry, then I was doing it all over again. But sometimes you couldn't know if they were taken as well until Johnny would put them in the book and be like, right, a bunch of these need redoing. And I'll be like, okay, let's get straight on it again.
The fact that we're on two different locations, because of the simplicity of the positioning of the items, if you like. So they're always going to be face on or, direct to the side. It's nothing sort of too dynamic with the shots in terms of, you want to show the product off. So it didn't require too much art direction from that point of view, because Greg knew, I knew that Greg knew what he was doing. So I could give him these items and he'd happily shoot them exactly how I wanted them to shoot. Just sometimes you get little imperfections on things and that, which you don't always pick up on the camera preview. But, we didn't want to be adding stands and stuff, because that meant more work down the line with taking those bits out and things like that, because a lot of the all the figures then have to be cut out. So you have to cut out around the edges of them. And you've got 4x96 plus all variations, plus this, plus that. So it's all, it's all a bit of how can you find out the workload. All these little adjustments you make, they make a big difference overall, because you're not doing that. You're cutting out a small process, but a small process that would have been added to add to 6,000 images,
And I have the volume 1 memory card with like all obviously they're all kept on there. It's still in my camera. So every time I turn it on to do some toy photography, I'm always greeted by the images, like the original images for the book on it. And then I sit there half an hour looking through them. But I mean, to go another thing, we take this on the road too, obviously, because then when restrictions started opening up, go visit people to photograph. People don't want to post their pride and joy to. It might get destroyed or lost at that time in the mail as well. A lot of things were disappearing, being COVID. The Royal Mail was really getting stretched and pushed. So when restrictions eased up, and we would hit the road, and we would do like 12-hour round trips in a day just to go to one person's house, to be there for 20 minutes, take a few photos. But I'd then have to set up my process respectfully in someone else's house with their collection and not rush it, but also not. We don't want to be there for hours. They was running enough letting us come around and do this, and some of them didn't like the collection being out. One guy we went to kept it in a walk-in vault, the fact that it was out, I'm like, oh my gosh, just put it down there, I won't touch it. Like,
there were some pretty rare pieces that we obviously we didn't have ourselves and wouldn't have had access to otherwise. But it's worth making that 4-hour drive somewhere to photograph those things for the day, so you can get them in the book. Things like a DT Obi-Wan Kenobi on a mint card. So and there was a guy that had one of those and 2 each of the Luke and Vader DT saber ones. On pristine cards. So it's like you wouldn't. When would you get the opportunity to see those? So it's sort of things like that. But the other thing I would say is that we then had to shoot them in acrylics, because they're sealed graded acrylics. So we would then have to come back and remove traces of those acrylics for the book, because we didn't want the card backs to be displayed with in the acrylics. We wanted them to be displayed how you would have seen them originally.
Yeah, these are the stories that I was hoping for, because we can all appreciate the book in its final version, but I think you appreciate it more when you hear these stories and you get the empathy of, because every collector's done it before. Every collector's put up their collection and tried to photograph them in pristine states, put them in Photoshop, get rid of the edges that, the stands and everything like that. So that's why I think it's great to know as you're reading this book, just to know the backstory of how it was made. It was made during COVID, going to people's houses, collections. I think, if I could have a behind the scenes earpiece in there as I flip through these books, hearing you guys say, oh yeah, on this shot, here's what we had to do to get this shot, but those are the cool stories that you don't really get, unless people watch this podcast right here. But it gives me a bigger appreciation for what you had inside this book,
And that's, that we appreciate it. But the trouble is, at the time, it's just you're going with the flow. You're going with, it's just, this is a job we need to do. You're not really absorbing what's happening at the time. We know that we've got to get these elements in this book, and we need to do, shoot them, clean them up, get them in the book and see how they look. And they might have to reshoot them and things like that. But because you're dealing with thousands of images, you're just working your way through it. And you should do things by batches, because if you, like you saying going back to the beginning, if I sat down and thought, right, okay, I'm going to do a book on Kenner action figures. Okay, I'm going to need all the action figures, all the card backs, all this, that, and the other. Oh, we're going to have to shoot all of those, add them all up. All right, that's over 6,000 images. There's no way I'm going to do that, So if you look at it like that, from that point of view, you'd never start the project.
Yeah.
So I think as it evolves and things grow, you sort of adapt to that situation. And it's not until the end that you realise what you've actually done and the time you spend doing it, because you're just caught up in the process in the meantime.
And think about it this way: if there's 6,000 images in the book, imagine how many images there are in our, on our Dropbox, that had to be taken to then pick the ones we're going to use out there. Just imagine how many images we were dealing with at the time, and how many photos were taken, how many scans were done. Like an insane amount of images we had to go through.
Yeah, that's a lot of the work that you don't see isn't in this book. It's the ones that hit the cutting room floor, the sections you guys had to probably take out to fit this book into, what is it? How many pages is this book?
536.
Yeah. There could have probably been 1,000 pages you guys had to edit out, or say, I want to keep this in. The one thing that, and this is our next question, it kind of flows into it. So we know the product is amazing. It came out fantastic, but what were the roadblocks and the problems that pretty much almost made you want to quit? And did you guys ever come to a point where you guys were going to stop and quit?
We never decided out loud to each other. We might have thought it late at night, but we never out loud to each other. And I never seriously entertained the idea of stopping it. I never really seriously thought, I don't know, maybe I'm going to step off this train. Never. I was in for the ride. But there were lots of roadblocks, 100%.
And as much as you get all the support along the way, it's always those 4 or 5 comments that are negative that stick in your mind. It's a natural thing for anyone, I think. And it's, in some ways, they drive you on, because you don't want to prove those people right, in a way. You want to drive on and get the job done. You're talking about pitfalls in there. At the beginning, we were saying we wanted it to be a landscape book. So this was an early mock-up that we did. And all this is real. It's not like the vintage collection or the retro collection. It's not been added. So this would have sort of early ideas for chapter breaks and things like that. So where we would have live action with the figures, and we replace a figure in a certain scene or whatever. But
obviously legally we couldn't use.
No, we had a guy that we know at Disney, and we'd sort of throw ideas to him. We go, well, I think you'll get in trouble for things like that, So we couldn't, it's a bit like the logos. We couldn't use a Star Wars logo on its own. It always had to be on a bit of packaging or something like that, because legally we're just not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
There's a question I want to ask later about that, but that's really specific. We'll get to that in a little while.
In terms of roadblocks, it was obviously COVID was a massive one, a huge one. It had its pros and its cons. Pros, we were able to work on it full time from our homes. Cons, we weren't able to be in the same room. We weren't able to go see people, get collections. You know, we were also dealing with things like Brexit, which was affecting postage overseas. Like, it was just so many things just kept, every time we kind of got over one hurdle, all of them started managing one hurdle, another one would sneak up beside us. And it was that all the way through, literally even all the way through, up until through the shipping process. It was a constant, just overcoming hurdles all the way along. Nothing really made us want to completely stop, but there were a lot of challenges over those couple of years working on it. So many that I can't even remember them all right now, but there were a lot of Zoom meetings. Sometimes it was, oh, look at these great images. Sometimes it was, how are we going to physically do this? How are we going to overcome this? How are we going to get past this? So yeah, a lot of that, which is actually good, because when the restrictions opened up and we were doing long road trips, it was pretty much a long car meeting. Like,
yeah, was right. We can have our meetings in the car on the way.
But what a journey though! Like, what a trip. We're talking to Gregory Armstrong and Gianni Vecchiarini. If you guys are joining us late, I know that both of you are artists, business people, collectors, but beyond the Star Wars book, beyond everything Star Wars, for those of my viewers who don't know you, like, what inspires you as a person, as artists? What inspires you as human beings right now that keeps you going?
I mean, the obvious answer is things like, you know, my daughter every day, you know, and I'm trying to be like not Star Wars all the time, but seeing her play with my old beta figures and kind of seeing the circle start again, you know, that was me when I was that age, and that was happening again in front of me. And photography as a whole also. So before the book, I wouldn't say I'd kind of taken a little break from photography, not just because of work and life got in the way. But a few years before, I was taking photographs all the time. I'd been published in a couple of photography magazines, and that would be pictures of, funny enough, old coins or just landscapes, you know, whatever took my eye. I wasn't really tied to one genre of photography. And I really wanted to get back into photography because that was a big passion of mine. And life got in the way, and I hadn't really got to it for a while. And then this opportunity came along, and it was like, right, okay, I can get back into taking photos again, which then got me back into an old hobby of mine, toy photography. You know, and that is so, I love it so much. And that then when I started doing the book, I was like, right, I can get back into toy photography. That means I can start buying toys again. I have a reason to start buying toys again that I can, you know, about my wife being like, why are you buying all these toys? Now I have a reason to be buying them. So then my collection just went boom, massive, you know, really quickly. So it is literally things like that. My inspiration every day is like, yeah, being with my daughter, seeing her dress up as Ahsoka, you know, and just seeing how she's still going through what I went through, but with different characters and a bigger universe to play with. Oh, and it really is amazing to see. And like, she sits down with that book and she can name all the characters on the front cover, you know? It really is amazing just to see how it's played this constant circle in my life, you know? I know that was still heavily involved Star Wars. Well, it kind of does go into all aspects of my life growing up.
No, I think it's important because, you know, I consider this book a piece of art. When I look at a painting, when I see a movie, I love going to film festivals and be able to talk to the filmmakers, be able to talk to the artists who are there in the galleries. And I don't ask them questions about their art or their movie. At that point, I want to get to know them as a person and what inspires them as an artist or a human being. And I think it's important to pick up this book, to know the people behind the book, you know. So that's why I wanted to ask. And for you, Gianni, what inspires you right now as a human, as an artist, as a person?
Well, I think, you know, there's obviously your friends and your families always, you know, always get encouragement to go and do things and, you know, what you create and stuff. There's always that backing there. But I just think, just seeing what other people are doing, you know, there's a lot of people in our collecting community who are real creative people, you know, and I love art and I love seeing other people and the work that they do. And you sort of question, how did they do that? You know, how was that achieved and things like that, you know? So, but I think the way technology's changed, it's opened up opportunities for people. You know, they can do these 3D printers and they can, you know, print it itself, you know, on 2D printing and stuff like that, and all the digital art that's out there and things like that. You know, you're getting an abundance of material out there that you can just take inspiration from, and you know, it can steer you in a certain direction in terms of a bit of art that you're doing yourself, or you know, the next project you're thinking of.
Yeah, I think that's really important too. And I hope that people are watching this and getting inspired to make the Power of the Force from the 90s. I hope there's somebody out there that's inspired to do something like that. I hope there's somebody out there getting inspired to, pick up a camera and taking pictures of their collection the way that they want to make it. And you're right. It's the democratization of art, the democratization of people making their own action figures. And I think that's perfect. And right now, all you need to do is watch YouTube like we're doing right now. And there's a tutorial or there's inspiration, on so many digital avenues right now. It's just amazing. So
there's enough resources out there that people can go and explore these things, whether they think they're good at it or not. They can go and learn something new. And that's inspirational in itself, I think.
It's interesting as well, because my wife's not a Star Wars fan. She doesn't hate it, but she's not a big Star Wars fan. But all through this process, my family being exposed to so much Star Wars during making this book, I'd get home, late night from work or come home, and my wife would be up and she'd be watching videos on YouTube of someone restoring old Star Wars figures. Yeah. I'm like, well, watch it. I didn't think you're into it. She's, oh no, I just like the process and it's soothing. And I'm like, well, there's a whole different section of Star Wars that you're into without really being into the films and the universe. Just specifically, we're seeing someone restore these old figures and put them back to their great grand form and things like that. So yeah, there's a whole ballpark to play with.
Faceted. Yeah.
Well, what we went through with you guys was the Kickstarter all the way through the printing of Volume 1, the first printing, and now there's a second printing out, which is happening right now. So I really wanted to let people know how to get a hold of, or how to get on the pre-order for the second printing of Volume 1. How do people do that?
Well, mate, I think Greg could take over after with all the technical side of stuff, but there's obviously demand for the book at the moment. You can see that some were selling on the secondary market for silly amounts of money, and we want to give those people who missed out an opportunity to get the book without paying hundreds of dollars for it. At the end of the day, if we can reduce some of the people that can still purchase at a reasonable price, then we'll do that. So that's one reason why we sort of created the wait list for a second print. It's just to give those people opportunity, because when we started, we didn't have like a massive budget where we could do a big media campaign of advertising it and, pushing it here, there and everywhere. We could only use the resources that are available to us, like Facebook and other social medias and YouTube and Instagram, etc. So, it's, and then people are still coming saying, I've never heard of this book. It looks great. How can we get it? So it was just a way of giving those people a more affordable opportunity to grab the book rather than paying secondary prices.
Yeah.
But
you can go over to our website, ReadFive Designs, and straight away on the landing page, you'll see, click here to pre-order your book. Just go through there, get it pre-ordered. And once you've got the orders in, we're going to close them on May the 12th. And then we're going to hand everything over to the printers. And then they're going to make the magic happen. They're going to print the book. And then it's going to be shipped directly from there rather than coming to us to sort and then get it out. So you're going to have a much more efficient service. And it's going to be, I'm excited to see them all start getting out into people's hands again. But it was nerve-wracking the first time the book started getting out, because this is the first time people were having it in their hands. And I didn't think people would be disappointed in it, but it's still a very nerve-wracking time. Now we're in the second round of it. I'm more excited just to see people get it in their hands and start seeing all those posts appear on Facebook. And it was amazing getting all these emails from people with pictures of their books they were sending us from around the world. And it just really made all these faces. You've seen these names in a spreadsheet for years, the last year or so. Yeah. All of a sudden, you're seeing these faces. Some of them are doctors in America. Some of them are firefighters. Some of them are Marines. Some of them are in the army. And it's like, wow, this whole world out there is getting this book and getting in touch with us to say they've got it and how much they love it. And it really is a hugely rewarding experience.
This is a book that I could see being in a lot of bookstores. It's a book I can see in downtown Disney. It's a book I can see in Disney. The question that somebody asked was, have you been in talks with a major publisher to get it licensed by Disney to be included in that family of literature?
Well, before I answer that question, I'll go back to what I was going to say. So regarding the second print of the first volume, we are doing a couple of edits to it. There's a couple of things that we changed. There's a couple of little things from a personal design point of view that I think I'd like to see that slightly different. So there are tweaks and changes that we are making to some images. And if we have learned something new in that time, then we'll try that in there as well. We will take out all the Kickstarter stuff because that makes the first one unique. And that's what the Kickstarter stuff is what made that book. It's what got us to this point of being able to now go out without needing Kickstarter to go and produce more books. But just wanted to make the first one unique in itself. And then, we can just make tweaks and changes and updates to any future print runs.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. And I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask, what are the subtle differences, if any, that are going to come out on this second reprint? So it makes at least my first print, this is the one where I'm going to store it and kind of put it on display. And my second print, so I'm getting two from you gentlemen. I'm getting one for me that I can write in and put the stickers in and do whatever I want in. And the second one I'm getting from y'all is I'm actually giving it away to a viewer. So that's why I'm getting two this time. One for me to write on, one for me to give away, which I'm excited to do. But thanks for that information, because I was going to ask that, the subtle differences, if any, that are going to be. So I'm glad that we have that cleared up now.
Yeah, sure.
And I guess to answer your question, the short answer is no, not really. There's no real talks about Disney getting hold of this book. Have we heard from publishers? Yeah. Is it?
Typically we have.
Yeah. Nothing. There's been no meetings or anything like that. So we haven't really thought about it. We've been so busy getting the next print ready and what have you. It's not that we're really thinking about that. At the moment, we're just trying to keep everything in our camp, I guess. So we have control over everything, and at least while we move forward with Volume 2. I mean, I don't know what the future holds or who's going to get in touch. We're as excited as everyone else to see what happens. We're happy to be, in our print, in our camp, all to ourselves.
Yeah. I mean, at the moment, we're just happy to grow organically, I think. Because we both work full-time jobs as well as producing this little book. So,
Because there's one thing about hearing about the book and getting it. And, there's another thing, and you mentioned it, was the marketing. It's hard to market to every collector that doesn't know about this, but I think that's why there's another case for the in-store browser. Like when you're walking past, a kiosk, or whether it be in a major bookstore, or like I said, a Disney store, and you see a book like this and you open it and you feel it and you hold it and you take a look inside and you're like, wow, I need to take this home with me. There's something to be said about that. I'm glad that we can get it organically and kind of grassroots. And there's something special about that, to have this book, because it is so grassroots. It is so collector funded.
I do go into what we got. We got a big chain of big bookstores over here, and I will go into one of them and look at the big book section and think, our book would look awesome right there on that shelf. To the point where sometimes I go in there with my daughter and she'll be like, Daddy, your Star Wars book isn't in here. I'm like, I know. I could dream. But what's really cool is that we were approached, and we legally had to do this, but we were happy to do it when they asked. We had to legally supply, if they didn't legally have to do, not every book has to do this, you have to be invited to. So there's a copy of this book in the British Library, isn't there? The Scottish one. A couple of universities, was it the library, Oxford University,
Oxford and Cambridge University.
Cambridge University have copies of this book in their library now. To be
Welsh, the Scottish, the UK national libraries.
Wow,
that's amazing. To think that's sat in Cambridge and Oxford University's library being looked at and studied is incredible. That I think it's there. That just blows my mind.
So there's a Volume 2 coming out in the future. So what can you tell us about Volume 2 that is going to differ from Volume 1?
Well, as you know, Volume 1 covers any aspect to do with the action figures themselves. So Volume 2 will branch out into the play sets, the vehicles, and the creatures, one of which are obviously mentioned in this, but they are mentioned loosely if it's figure related or something like that. But yeah, so we're going to try and treat, give it the same ReadFive treatment, whereby you've got all these aspects, all these elevations of the sets and things like that. and break them all down so that people know what's involved in each set and what variations there might be and all that sort of thing. So they might not all be full size like they are in this book. I'm not sure we can get enough fold out pages to maybe get an ATAT in there or something.
Yeah, no.
We'll certainly show them that, as large as we possibly can.
Yeah,
I don't think anybody expects a full actual. It would take a coffee table, real big coffee table to hold this book. Yeah,
I'm really looking forward to doing the photography for the second book. We had a little taster of it when we obviously photographed the Death Star for Volume 1. So the preview of Volume 2 at the back of Volume 1, we photographed all that specifically for the book. So we had a Death Star, put it all together, took it all apart, cleaned it all up, photographed it all separately, then put it all back together and photographed it. And then we photographed it, recreating all the old ads with the figures in it, just how they were.
Which are in this book, aren't they?
Yeah, all in this book, which will be in Volume 2, but we, previewed it in Volume 1. So I've got a little taster of how it's going to be photographing the play sets and the vehicles, and it's going to be so much different to photographing the figures, and I'm really excited to start getting stuck into that.
So is it going to be the same process where it's going to be a Kickstarter campaign for Volume 2, or is that one going to go into production? Like, and you guys have any dates right now on anything?
I think we're probably at the moment looking at somewhere in 2025, if we're honest. The amount of work that's going to be involved in it, and the gathering the resources that we need to be in the book, etc. We have started. So going back to the design stage, what I tend to do is what we do. We make a skeleton document. So we start planning out the pages. What's going to be, how much is that play set? How many pages is that going to occupy in the book? So then you start building up the number of pages and where your chapter breaks are going to be and how the flow of the book's going to be and things like that. So you're doing all this without any actual content as such. I mean, we do pulling bits, low-res images and stuff just to play around with layouts and things like that.
Placeholders,
yeah. It's about sort of getting the skeleton of the document together so we know what's going to be in it. No doubt that will change as the process goes on and we learn new things and things like that. And you might find, actually that chapter or that section is going to need another spread adding to it and something like that, a bit like what we did with this book. But yeah, so we will do a pre-order through our website when the time comes. So it won't be a Kickstarter, but we want to get the book a lot more finished before we start doing that so that people aren't having to wait the amount of time they did for this book. We've learned, every time you go through a process, you learn a lot along the way. And one of the things we learned is that we probably took people's money a bit too early in terms of where the book was, and that puts pressure on us as well. It's good to have pressure because it keeps you motivated and it keeps you working. But at the same time, you want to be fair to the customer and you don't want to be holding on to their money for too long,
It was also worth mentioning that when we first did, and I said this earlier, when we first did the Kickstarter, it was a much smaller book, and we wanted it to be a very affordable collector's book. Everyone loves Kellerman and wants to get hold of a Kellerman, but you're not really going to get one unless you're lucky for, less than £350. We wanted a book that could, be just as adored and useful, but not as much money, more affordable. So when we did this original book, which as Johnny showed you, wasn't obviously that size, but it was that shape.
Yeah.
We thought, what's a good price for this? And we were maybe £90, £100, but we wanted it to be affordable and invite people to buy it on the Kickstarter because no one knew us. No one knew who he was. Like, have you heard and Johnny are making a book? No one knew who we were. It was more like, who are these guys? So the book really speak for itself. So we thought we had almost made it, So we agreed, £75 for the Kickstarter, and we were like, right, that's a good price. That's going to get people invited in. Everyone came in. Kickstarter finished, doors opened, book grew. So that book is now no longer a £75 book. It's a much grander piece. So everyone in the Kickstarter got a much grander book than they originally backed. And we obviously had to make it more appealing, more throwing in different dust jackets, loads of posters. I'm not saying we're not going to do that going forward, but that was really to get us noticed and get us on the map, get people noticed and want to buy the book without knowing who we were or anything about us. Now, when we go into Volume 2, we'll probably do stuff like that, but it won't be, multiple tiers of Kickstarter. We want to have more control of the whole process ourselves. We've learned so much during Volume 1.
Now that everybody has Volume 1, they know the quality. They know what to expect for Volume 2. So I think that my advice to you guys, don't rush. don't rush. We all know.
No.
Yeah, we all know what's coming out. We all know because it started in 2020 really to get this book out. 2023 right now. So you say average of 2.5 years, 3 years.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think if all of us know what's coming out in volume 2, 3 years to wait, that's perfect for me.
And we purposely, going back to that book there, pricing it and things like that, we purposely undersold it slightly because we have to think, right, if we didn't know who these guys were, how much are you prepared to gamble as to whether you're going to get the book or not? And we thought £75 plus shipping is a figure that people might be prepared to pay for it if they trust in what we're doing. So it's all about trying to create a bit of growth for yourself and a bit of attention for yourself, so that by the time you've got a product out there, people know what you've got enough people that have got that product to spread the word, so that as you move forward, you can start to sort of build your business, if you like, and build your product base.
We have a couple more questions to go through. One of them, or it's not really a question, it's a little rumor I've heard through the grapevine. And I've heard through the grapevine from my friend Drew Tegg over at Collector Displays that you guys are working on a display case that will house your new volume 1. Is this true?
That is true, yeah. We can take credit for it.
I wouldn't say we've been working on it.
Yeah. I mean, Drew sort of approached us and said he had this idea. And we said, yes, we love it. It's great. If anything, I struggle to find a place to put the books, so...
you both got yours sat with you. I don't have a space to have it with me. I haven't got the book in front of me. I've got no space.
No.
Yeah, it's like what I wanted to do is I was actually going to build something that was going to go next to his case, kind of like, you go into your library and you go into a study, and you always walk into a study where you see those gorgeous law books or those gorgeous dictionaries or encyclopedias on this case, And I feel like Gandalf anyway, like researching the scrolls when he goes into one of Saruman's studies. I wanted to have something for me that I can like encase it and kind of make it special. And when I'm seeing the pictures of this case right now, it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah,
I wanted something like that. So that's going to be incredible. So I kind of wanted to ask you guys about that to see if it's true. And now that it is, I can show the pictures, which is awesome.
Absolutely, yeah.
We when we first saw a few design photos, but when we actually got sent the actual finished product photos by Drew, I was amazed. I was like, I can't believe this has come from our book. And what's really cool about Drew is that when we started, ReadFive and getting the book read in the Kickstarter, it was around the same sort of time Drew was posting about his cases. So we kind of both kind of came up side by side by each other. We'd see each other at Live, and things like that, and cross paths on Facebook and Instagram and get mentioned on the communities. So it's been really exciting to kind of see us come up together. And now we've hit this bit at the top together where our companies have almost merged to make this little product, and it's incredible to see.
Well, I started my channel around the same time Drew started, around the same time you guys started. Yeah. So I got to meet you guys early on when I was just barely starting my first episodes. So it's great I think that's what I dig about, not supporting, but featuring products or featuring books on there, is that that's why I'm asking you about you as people, about you as artists, is that I really like to know the people. And not just about okay, what are they selling to us? What are they, I like to know where's your passion come from? Who, where you come from in the community. It's about knowing the people first and then saying, oh yeah, these are great people. I would support them on whatever they do, you know?
Yeah, and that's important to us too. And that's why we have in the front of the book, the sections about us. At one point it was like, do we have an about us? Do people even want to care? But it's like, well, yeah, of course they do. Yeah. We care. We care. We want them to know what our backgrounds are and what made us make this book. So that's why it's important that we have those about us sections at the start.
And more importantly, it's why we have the section at the back where we thank all those people. We're thanking those people in the community because they they went out on a limb and they backed us, and they told us, everyone, this is a great product, you should back this product. And they don't get paid to do that. They do that because they believe in what we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is that the collectors and people in general, they'll tell you what's good. Collectors will tell you what's good in the community because they'll start promoting it. They'll start showcasing it in their collections. I think it's the same with this book. It's the highest quality piece of art that I've seen from any piece of literature in a long time, because it's not just a copy book. Yeah, it's a tool. It is a copy book where, somebody who doesn't know about it can flip through it and understand what's going on. But as a collector, as a serious collector, this book it's my Bible now. I reference it twice a day. I come here when I have a question about a figure, or if I see something online and I want to fact check it, I'll come in here and say, oh yeah, that's the truth, or oh, there was something they missed about that piece of information. So it's something that I use on a daily basis, but it's something that we as collectors, I think we will tell the community if it's good or not. So it's with this book, I'm glad the word's getting out because it is grassroots. So I'm glad that everyone's getting a chance to see this book now.
The community's been amazing. Like, we've made not even just online acquaintances. We've made genuine friends and built relationships with so many of these people, just through YouTube, Facebook, and just talking to them, commenting, and then meeting them at Echo Live, and the first time, mate, little handshake. Next time you see him, it's a big bear hug, because, we've gone through all this together, and now we're like, it's amazing, isn't it? Like, just all these friends we've made, and just how these aren't just names anymore, they're people. We know who they are now, whether they are just people on Facebook, whether they have a YouTube channel, or whether they're sellers, or just, it doesn't matter. All meeting them has just been amazing, and these bonds we've grown. And I guess when we go to Echo Live, I get generally really excited. So not even just about the day itself, but about seeing our friends again.
Yeah,
really,
it's the meet up, isn't it? It's meeting the people. It's meeting our friends from online. It's seeing them face to face. And being able to shake their hands. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you guys for taking the time out to talk to me. I feel like I've gone on this journey with you for the last 3 years, but you guys aren't off the hook yet. There's about 10 more questions I want to ask. And so this is a segment I like to call Remember the 80s. These questions are going to be very, very flash questions. If you can't remember the 80s, the 90s are fine. Just give me your first answer. You got less than 3 seconds. I'm going to ask a question. Whatever pops in your head. Okay.
I only had 6 years in the 80s because I was
that's why I'm expanding it. Yeah, mate. We're going to expand it into the 90s. Okay. So we're going to do Greg first and Gianni. Then Greg first. So the first question, Greg's going to get. Second question, Gianni, and we'll go like that. Okay. All right. So for Greg, since it's the 90s, favorite song from the 90s?
I actually have an 80s answer. Transformers original soundtrack, animated movie.
Love it. I was just listening to that the other day. So that you get a million points for that one.
Thank you.
All right, Gianni, favorite catchphrase from the 80s?
Oh, I thought I was going to get the song. I had my song lined up.
Oh, what's your song? Go ahead. You're the guest.
I ain't nobody.
You guys are the guests. You can do whatever you want. You want to name it from the 60s? You guys name it from the 60s. This is your show. Shaka Khan. I can get behind that. All right, Greg. Favorite smell from the 80s? 90s.
90s. God, opening up any toy box, anything. Anything.
It's the toad smell. The toad fight.
The plastic crack. Yeah.
Okay, Greg, name a store inside your 80s mall.
Toys R Us.
How about Greg?
Our price, I would say.
I mean, Gianni.
I always like when it was a record store. Yeah, it's not there anymore, and that was the one that you'd sort of go to get your 7-inch vinyl or whatever, your 12-inch. Yeah, I'd always. Yeah.
All right, both of you, favorite video game from the 80s or 90s?
Me is Sensible Soccer. I used to love playing that game. It's a football game, English football, Sensible Soccer.
Yeah. My grandma had the computer where you put the tape in and press play, and it was the Star Wars game, like the tracking system game. And then we also had Short Circuit 2 as a game, believe it or not.
I remember that one. That one's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Celebrity crush from the 90s, Greg.
Oh, man. Jesus. Pretty much. The Gladiators, I guess. Jet from the Gladiators, I imagine.
You might not know who that is, but
Yeah.
I know exactly. I used to watch the Gladiators. Gianni, favorite celebrity crush from the 80s.
like I used to like Stephanie Beacham from Heart to Heart. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking about this. It was mine, or one of mine was Weird Science, Kelly LeBrock.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Weird Science. All right, so movie you rented more than once in the 80s or 90s.
God. Transformers and Short Circuit 2. And Short Circuit 1, sorry.
I'd maybe say Goonies.
Oh, yeah.
Goonies.
Yeah, that's a good one. Good one to rent over and over again. On Saturday morning in the 80s or 90s, what are you guys watching?
X-Men.
Well, there was Tiz was a program, and I think it was like, it stood for This Is Saturday something or other. It was an acronym. Tiz was an acronym. I can't remember what. But it was just like a kid show where they had all different skits and things like that on there, and it was just mayhem. And there was like cakes and food fights and everything like that. So it was just like a kids.
We'll look it up. And when if you find it, we're going to put it up on the screen. People are going to be Googling that.
There'll be plenty of great shots.
Last question. What are you guys wearing in the 80s or 90s?
Full Spider-Man pajama suit.
You wear that now.
I know.
I don't know. Probably like, I don't know, ripped jeans and some neon or something.
No, not the red Texan jacket.
No, I never had that. Or the white glove.
You guys survived the interview. I want to say thank you for taking the time on Star Wars Day to hang out with me and hang out with everybody else. So, guys,
It was our pleasure.
we're really looking. No, you're welcome. We're really looking forward to the second print of Volume 1, and we're looking forward to Volume 2. And anytime you guys want to come on, you guys can come on.
Yes. Yeah. Fantastic. Thanks. Been great.
Thanks very much.
So if you want to get on the Volume 1 reprint, there's a link down below in my description. But thank you to Greg and Gianni for coming on the show. And if you found this video interesting, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And if you want to see more content like this, then please hit that subscribe button. And if you want to support me on a deeper level, please join me on my Patreon community, or you can subscribe right here on YouTube. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time.
If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.